I want to turn this over to the audience. We have about 5 or 10 minutes so maybe 2 or 3 questions, because then I want to get the panel to try and respond. So Mr. Sinha, I see your hand up there fairly quickly. Right at the back, there, gentleman standing. So Sinha, Dr. Harper, and there was a lady here, and maybe 3 questions right now, and then we can do more later on if there is time.
Nachiket, first one very small point. You weren't here yesterday, but your characterization of the fast-moving vehicle, and you said the wall was not visible. If you'd been here yesterday, you would have realized that the wall is very much visible and real. Something is going to have to be done pretty soon. But the other point, which is much more important, is that we've been through more than an hour of discussion on small finance banks and who is going to reach the poor, without mentioning a whole arm of our financial system, which is the regional rural banks. The RRBs represent a very significant opportunity to work with poor people. The only thing that's holding them up is the lack of initiative on the part of the public sector banks who are their owners. I believe if the government has the courage to privatize even a few of those to begin with, I think the whole situation will start to change very fast.
Thank you, sir. If we could give, I will just take the 3 questions and then respond to it. Can you give the mic to the lady? Please
Hi.
Introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hello? Oh. Hi, my name is Sarika Bansal. I'm from Fullerton, India. I have a question for all the panelists, especially Mr. Venkateshwaran. I was just wondering if we could step back for a moment, and I wanted to ask, what exactly is your definition of financial inclusion? At what point is an individual or a household considered to be financially included? Is it when someone opens a no-frills account, or is it something beyond that?
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Harper, you had a question?
Yes, first a brief and I'm afraid rude observation. The Indian behavior towards financial institutions reminds me of gentlemen, perhaps ladies too, who undertake serial marriages. Yeah. They discard this lady because she wasn't quite right, and they discard another one, and they take a new one, without perhaps looking at the mirror and wondering whether the way they treated the ladies had something to do with the failure. The question is, some 10 years ago, there was a thing called the local area bank. And the legislation, I believe, was passed, or the regulation was put in place. A few applied, we heard in the earlier session, and there is at least one local area bank, the KVS Lab, which is the local area microfinance bank. Why do we need a new institution? That piece of legislation is in place. If there is, and I'm not sure there is, a need for more institutions, let that be used. Please could the panel tell me why it is not? Maybe I can add as a rider, why the hell is there nobody from the Reserve Bank here to respond to that question?
Thank you. What I'm going to ask the panelists to do is to respond to some of these questions in maybe 2 minutes, also make their closing remarks. We have about 10 minutes, and if there is time, we'll go back to the floor for questions. May I start with Dr. Bakshi, please?
To the question that Sanjay asked, whether RRBs can really be privatized, maybe the question that Malcolm has asked is an answer to that. Local area bank was a kind of privatized RRB, but then the private sector really did not stand up to the test, and Reserve Bank had to cancel many licenses. Not even half a dozen labs to function today. The attempt was made, but somewhere I think the private sector who was supposed to take up this initiative failed. But let me tell you that just a month ago, a committee has been set up to look at the capital structure of the RRBs. Whether it will recommend whether that RRB should be privatized or not, I will be able to tell only 3 months later when the report is submitted. But a committee has been set up to look at the entire issue of the capital structure of RRBs under the chairmanship of Dr. Chakravarti. So far as local area banks are concerned, as I mentioned that, well, the offer was made that, yes, because what is an RRB? Let us start with this very simple thing. RRB perhaps in India was the first fully regulated microfinance institution created anywhere in the world. Right from day one, they were scheduled banks, your deposits were safe, They were created only to serve the small man. In fact, when RRBs were set up, they were supposed to finance only the small farmer, marginal farmer, artisans, women, and such people. It is only later, after 15 years, that they were allowed to finance the slightly larger borrowers also. So, and they were operating in a small area of about 2 or 3 districts, serving only about 2 million people. Had only local staff, but they were professionally managed. So chairman was always from a commercial bank. But all other staff was recruited from that very district, so that they speak the same language, they can build up relationships. Now, this is an issue, whether by amalgamating some of the RRBs and converting from 200 to less than 90 now, whether we have played with the regional character of RRBs, whether the human resource policy, what Srinivasan mentioned, that a branch manager is sent for 2 years and then he walks away from the branch, whether that is the right policy. These are issues which I think we'll have to dwell on when we make any recommendations for financial inclusion. Because everybody is saying that financial inclusion is a matter of trust. And here is a bank which does not trust its own employee. He says that if he remains there for more than 2 years, he will develop vested interest and must be shifted away. What kind of trust we are building when we don't have trust in our own employee, perhaps? I think Nachiket knows that his own earlier bank, ICICI, when the Bank of Madura merged in it, Bank of Madura had tried to do this. The earlier chairman of Bank of Madura, he simply offered to the people, do you want to work in rural area? Okay, work in that branch for next 10 years. I will not ask any questions. But you will have to perform. I can always monitor you. The third thing which Madam had asked was, what is the definition of financial inclusion? It is certainly not just opening of no-frills account. Everybody today knows that millions of no-frills accounts have been opened which are dead accounts. Some money has been deposited there. Sometimes there is no money in that. The average money that remains in the kind of accounts which Nachiket mentioned for governmental payments, Narega payments, pension payments, etc. is something like 20 rupees. And if only 20 rupees remains with the bank, the entire exercise of transferring this money and opening an account, etc. becomes non-viable. But I still look at business correspondent as a very, very possible model, because what we are looking at is trying to reduce the transaction cost of the bank and trying to reduce the transaction cost of the clients, whether they are depositors or whether they are borrowers. They need not really move too much to avail that financial service. And in fact, the kind of audacious goal that we have set up for ourselves in NABARD is to develop a methodology where I would say our goal is that if in 3 years we can create a system where nobody is required to walk more than 15 minutes to avail a financial service from a formal financial institution. How that is provided is the headache of the financial institution. It will have to provide an outlet where that financial transaction can take place. And if it is far too away, one has to go by a bus for 2 hours, then that is not the service. So it should be available locally, and this is what MFIs are providing. But there is a cost to that. Now, how do we reduce that cost to make it viable both for the service provider as well as for the client, using whatever technology is available, whatever changes in systems and processes? That is the challenge that we all face, and that is what we are trying to resolve.